Now drawing a line as my waistline with my pattern paper folded into two, I'll take down my measurements. First is the full length plus 1 inch hemming allowance, and waist to knee, waist to hip. I'll do this on the other part of the paper and square it out with my straight ruler. Then I'll start imputing my measurements. On my waistline, I'll have my waist divided by 4 without any sewing allowance because my skirt has no side stitch. My hip divided by 4, I'll impute this here. My knee measurement is my hip divided by 4 minus 1.5 plus 1. That's my knee measurement with no stitching allowance. Then whatever I have on my knee minus 1, that's what I have on my hemline. I'll connect these like this. Using my slight curved rule, I'll connect my hip point to my waist point at point 18 on the ruler. Then to create a curve in front, because my waist is lower at the front than at the back, I would come down from the center front by 1 inch. Using my slight curved rule, I'll create a slight curve back to the side. I'll cut my pattern now after labeling it. Now this becomes my front pattern, and I'll go ahead and create my back pattern. Almost the same way, but with a zipper allowance. Now for my back pattern with my pattern paper folded into two, I'd mark my zip allowance of 1 inch, and using my straight rule, I'll connect a straight line. When I'm done, I'll place my front pattern right on top of this pattern paper, starting from where the zip allowance stopped, and I'll pin it down and trace the rest of the pattern. Now remember, the waist of the back is higher than that of the front, so I'll go back up by 1 inch and connect this back and cut out following the pattern, and this becomes my back pattern. To be sure of every line I'm working with, I'll go ahead and impute my hip line and knee line on both pattern pieces, both for the front and the back, and keep these together and start our manipulation. Okay, now remember, our skirt doesn't have a side seam. That is why we did not include any sewing allowance on the sides. Using the labeling hip to hip and knee to knee, I'll match the pieces together like this. Using my cell tape, I'll join both sides together. Now when we're done joining the sides, I'll show you how to join the waist area. This was quite tricky, but I was able to achieve this. So do it slowly, and this is what you should have. Now, before we join the waist area, let's create a slit. Depending on where you want your slit to be, you enter your nipple to nipple divided by 2 from the center front and make a point all the way down and connect with your straight rule. Now we'll have to indicate where we want our slit to stop. I want mine 4 inches above the knee point, so I'll make a point at that point and label it my slit point. Now, to make the slit curvy, I'll go out by 3 inches on that side and 3 inches towards the center and 6 inches towards the center point. Using my slight curved rule, I'll create a curve like this because I want my slit to be curvy. I don't want it to be a straight slit. Now, to close the hip part of our pieces, I'll start by slashing the hip point of the back pattern open. With this, I can be able to move the back pattern towards the front pattern and close it up with a seal tape. I'll do this for both sides of these pieces, like this. Now, this is what I have. It's very tricky, but you have to try. Now, I'll go ahead and cut open this slit area. With that, I'm going to cut these pieces into two by labeling it the left and right piece. Now let's work on the left piece. The concept behind this is the slash and spread concept. Now from the zipper area, I'd go up by 6 inches and start slashing on all the way to the hip point. I'll start from the slit point to the hip point. The last slash is the hip line. Now I'll open this hip line to be able to close the hip line of the back pattern that I opened initially. It's not supposed to be open, it's closed. So this is what I have here. I'll slash the rest of the lines open up until the slit point. I'll do the same thing for the other piece, that is the right piece. Now this is the right piece going up 6 inches from the zip area. I'll slash from the slit point all the way to the hip line, with the hip line being the last line. I will open up the hip area of the front piece to be able to close the hip area of the back piece. Just the same thing I did for the other pieces. This is very tricky, so take your time and use your tape rule to close it up. Now it's time to slash and spread. Now let's go over and cut on our fabric. Now notice that my pattern is placed on the wrong side of my fabric. Please place your pattern on the wrong side of your fabric, and also notice I added 1 inch at the edge of the slash, and I slashed and I spread this thing by 2 inches apart, so you can decide to spread it more before cutting. It's left for you. And also remember to add ½ inch above the waist area. As you can see me cutting ½ inch away, this is because I'll be attaching a band or a facing to cover up the waist area. So do the same thing I've done and you'll get the same result I have. I'd also do the same thing for the other pieces, the same way I did for this piece. Notch at the slit area. Notch where you want your slit to stop so you don't get confused when you unpin your pattern. Now, let's go ahead and pleat this fabric. Notice the way I placed my fabric. I'm placing it the front side facing me this time around. This is because I want my pleat to face upwards and not downwards. So notice how I'm folding my slit, it's facing upwards. This gives you a really nice effect when you're done. When it's facing downwards, it doesn't give what it's supposed to give, right? So you're supposed to place your slit to face upwards and not downwards. So this is me plating it. I'll plate this piece, and using the split I've made for the piece, I would plate the other piece. Carefully. You can tell that I stopped where my slit stops, so that's where your pleating stops. You can go ahead and pleat all the way to the topmost part, leaving half inch for your band or your facing. Now, using this, I'm going to pleat the other part of the piece. I'll place it close together and pleat. I noticed my slit was too much. That's the notch I made for my slit point was too much. So make sure you don't make the same mistake. Just a little bit of notch is what you need. But I made so much notch there. It's almost looking as if it's torn. So please don't make the same mistake. Now go ahead and hold this down and also fold here. Fold it all the way hem. Hem is the word. I'll hem it all the way to the zip area, but I'll use a stitch to hold the pinned part. Now that I'm done, this is what it looks like. I use the tiny stitch to hold the the this part. So now I'm going to go ahead and cover this. I'll cover from that place. You can still see the 1 inch mark I made. I'll cover from there and stop at the slit point where I want my slit to stop. Then for the zipper area, I'll hold this back area together like this. Using my tape rule from the waist point, I would go down 9 to 10 inches, and that's going to be my where my zip would be placed. Then from that point, I would close that part all the way down. Okay, we're done closing the whole areas that needs to be closed. The next thing I want to do is fix my zip. Then I'll take a piece of this same fabric and create a facing at the waist area. You can make yours into a band. It's all good. It's going to come out pretty and nice. Now guys, click on the like button, subscribe. Thank you so much for watching this video. Stay tuned on your notification button so you can get notified when I post a new video. Thanks. Bye.